Hi, I'm Jeff Murrow, and I want to welcome you to True Texas History, where today I'm going to be talking about Governor Oscar Colquitt and the Texas border problem. Um, you know, if you read the newspaper headlines today, you see all the stories about the border crisis and what's happening down there. Truly, it is out of hand. And to hear today's journalists talk about it, you think that this is a brand new problem. Well, I've got news for you. It is not a new problem. This has been an issue that Texas has had to deal with for a long time. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, how it was handled about 111 years ago by Governor Oscar Colquitt. Now, Oscar Colquitt was a Democratic governor, of all things. And he took office, and shortly after he took office, there was a lot of unrest in Mexico. This was the early stages of the Mexican Revolution when Porfirio Diaz was kicked out of office and Francisco Madero took over. Now, mind you, that whole plan to kick Madero out of office was hatched in San Antonio, Texas. Yes, it's called the Plan of St. Louis Potosi, but the whole plan was put together in Restaurant San Antonio, which makes you wonder, how much involvement did the U.S. have in this? But anyways, with the unrest in Mexico, many of the people in Mexico wanted to flee what was happening down there. And they were coming across the border, and Governor Colquitt was having to deal with these true refugees who were fleeing a wartime situation. Not only that, he was also afraid that some of the rebels involved in the ongoing revolution would make raids across the border to raid Texas towns for supplies. And he wanted to protect the towns and the people of Texas. And being the governor, he went ahead and did what the right thing was, I guess at that time. He asked for help from the federal government. He went to President Taft. He asked President Taft for the use of federal troops to protect the Texas border. Taft said, it's none of our business, and he refused to send any federal troops down to the border because he felt that the United States did not need to be involved in other countries' revolutions. Gee, things have changed a lot, haven't they? Anyways, Colquitt did not receive any help from the federal government. If anything, President Taft told him to go ahead and use Texas troops, which is what he did. He went ahead and activated the Texas Rangers and had them go ahead and patrol the borders, and they were assisted by volunteer militiamen. So here you had the border of Texas being protected by Texas Rangers and militiamen. And this was some serious protection. I mean, they had machine gun positions, and they had strung a lot of barbed wire. They were serious about what was going on. And in the early days of the Texas Revolution, Mexican Revolution, strangely enough, Pancho Villa did assist the Texas Rangers in chasing down some Mexican bandits that had fled Texas back into Mexico, and he helped locate them and assisted them. Now, some of the residents of El Paso, they would sit there, they had a ringside seat with what was going on with the Mexican Revolution in front of them. In fact, it was during this time that Zane Grey spent some time alongside the Texas Rangers, and that's where he received a lot of inspiration for his stories and his tales. He really did see many of the things that he was writing about. If you wonder why Zane Grey wrote such a persuasive Western, well, he lived part of it. And eventually things settled down a little bit, Colquitt took a firm stance in that whole situation. Now, the Mexican Revolution continued for probably about another 10 years, and ironically, just a few years later, in 1914, you had the whole Tampico incident. And I was reminded of that because, I've seen all the news reports about the battleship Texas going down to Galveston. The first mission for the battleship Texas was they sent the battleship Texas down to the city of Tampico in the midst of the Mexican Revolution to supposedly settle things down. I'm a little skeptical about that. At the time it was built, the battleship Texas was considered the most powerful weapon in the world. You send it down to a Mexican port, that sends a strong message. Plus, there were some other vessels, and the Marines invaded the city. They occupied it for about 6 months. And then when they left, they saw to it that their supplies of weapons happened to fall into the hands of the side of the Mexican revolutionaries that the U.S. government was unofficially supportive of at the time. Some real suspect things, but it was during this time that the battleship Texas had its first mission, and that's what it was, the invasion of Tampico. Now, this whole episode with Colquitt securing the border was not a waste of time, because soon thereafter, you had the formation back in 1915 of the Border Patrol. Prior to 1915, the United States did not have a Border Patrol. And in fact, it was the Texans that taught them how to go ahead and secure the border. The original organization of the Border Patrol consisted of 75 people, which is not much. Fortunately, it has grown since then. And at the time it was formed back in 1915, it was to keep out illegal immigrants from China. Yes, because there were some barriers, and the Chinese could not immigrate to California, so they would go in through Mexico and come up through Texas. And that was considered a problem back in 1915, which is what led to the formation of the Border Patrol. Anyways, a lot of times people want to raise a lot of stink about the situation on the border, which it's truly out of hand. But this has been a long-standing problem, and a lot of times since we have not studied our history of how things were handled on the border, say 100, 120 years ago, we lose perspective, and this is where history can come in and help out. I hope you enjoyed this today. Feel free to leave your comments below. I welcome any thumbs up. And until next time, this is Jeff Murrah, wishing you via con Dios, my friend. Goodbye.